I needed to find a gift for my friend's birthday as soon as possible, and I knew the best place to look for something unique would be online. My friend, Adeline, liked unique objects and items. This could be seen through her fashion choices and souvenirs. I wanted to match her vibe by finding something as abstract as her collections. As I continued to browse the web, I stumbled across this website called Intel Finds. Curious, I clicked on the website and felt I had won the lottery. They sold items ranging from animal bones to dead animal skin. Not long after, I immediately added the snake skin and some tiny skeletons I knew she could decorate with. I was so excited to know that I could finally sleep soundly after buying what I needed. The next day, the snake skin and bones had arrived, and I ran to the door. "Package for Sam?" the delivery man asked. I quickly signed the papers before bidding goodbye and headed back inside to place everything in a gift bag. I only had 3 hours before the start of Adeline's birthday party. Luckily, I made it just in time to greet Adeline happy birthday. We had loads of fun, ate cake together, and I got to catch up with all of my friends I hadn't seen in a long time. I was worried you wouldn't be able to make it. "I'm so happy you did," Emery told me as she put a hand on my shoulder. "All right, time for gifts," someone shouted. We all gathered back in the living room for Adeline to open all of our gifts. Bit by bit she was getting closer to my gift, and my excitement peaked. "Oh my God," she screamed. "This snake's skin and bones would be amazing for the dress I've been working on. Thank you so much, Sam." She immediately pulled me into a hug and I couldn't be happier. However, I should have known this happiness wouldn't last for long. What was I thinking putting Adeline into this position? As Adeline enthusiastically examined the snake's skin and bones, I felt a sudden chill run down my spine, but I dismissed it as mere nerves. After all, it was a unique gift, and she seemed thrilled about it. Little did I know that the sinister presence lurking in the shadows of my present would soon reveal itself. As the night wore on, the party continued with laughter and music. Emery, Adeline, and I spent hours catching up, reminiscing about old times, and discussing Adeline's creative projects. She even showed us some of her recent sketches for the dress she was planning to create using the snake skin and bones. The designs were intricate and beautiful, making me feel relieved that I had chosen the perfect gift. However, as the clock struck midnight, the atmosphere in the room began to change. The once joyous gathering took on an eerie undertone and a heavy silence descended upon us. Emery, Adeline, and I exchanged puzzled glances, trying to understand what had caused this sudden shift. Adeline, clutching the snake's skin and bones, suddenly looked pale and uneasy. Her gaze was fixed on the gift as if she were seeing something that we couldn't. She mumbled something inaudible, and her hands began to tremble. "Adeline, are you okay?" Emery asked, her voice filled with concern. Adeline didn't respond, and her eyes grew wide with fear. She dropped the gift bag, and the snake's skin and bones spilt out onto the floor. Inexplicably, the room grew even colder, and a strange, otherworldly mist began to swirl around the items. The mist coiled and twisted, forming into a spectral figure. A shiver ran down my spine as I realized that we had unwittingly unleashed a malevolent force. The ghostly presence materialized before us, its eyes filled with rage and torment. Everyone in the room screamed in terror, but Adeline was paralyzed with fear. The ghostly figure seemed to be drawn to the snake's skin and bones, its spectral hands reaching out to caress them. It whispered in a haunting, ethereal voice, "You have awakened me from my eternal slumber, and now you must pay the price." I could feel the malevolence emanating from the ghost, and I knew that we had to do something to stop it. Desperate, I turned to Emery. "We need to get rid of those items, Emery. It's the only way to banish this spirit." Emery nodded, her eyes filled with determination. We grabbed the snake's skin and bones and made a run for the backyard, with the vengeful spirit following closely behind. As we reached the open air, we could see the first light of dawn on the horizon. With a burst of courage, Emery and I threw the cursed items into a bonfire we had set up earlier in the evening. The moment the snake's skin and bones were engulfed in flames, the spirit let out an ear-piercing scream and dissolved into smoke, vanishing into the morning mist. Adeline, still trembling, watched as the sun began to rise, and the dark presence was finally gone. We explained what had happened to her, and she was grateful that we had acted quickly to save her from the haunting. The rest of the day was filled with relief and laughter as we put the horrifying events behind us. Adeline decided to stay away from the supernatural and focus on her fashion designs instead. From that day on, I was always weary of what I bought on the internet. Story 2. Tired and restless, I could finally relax after a long shift at work. To relieve the stress, I decided to browse the internet to see if I could do any online shopping. Everything seemed mundane until I stumbled upon a unique object. It was these boots, but it wasn't just regular boots. The boots had the most beautiful and intricate patterns on the inside, the outside covered in soft leather. There was a bit of platform underneath, and what I liked the most was that it did not appear as bulky in the pictures. These would be perfect to wear to work, I mumbled, instinctively adding the boots to my basket to finish ordering. 3 days later, the boots arrived, and I couldn't be happier. They looked even more amazing in person, and I could see how much time and effort it took to make them. I wore the boots the next day, and everyone at the office was admiring me. It gave me a confidence boost to know people appreciated the new look. But the appreciation wasn't for long. One night, as I was finishing my shift, I could feel a presence lurking in the shadows. It had been like this for the entire day, and I couldn't pinpoint who or what it could be. My heart raced as I walked to my car, the clicking of my heels echoing in the empty parking garage. I constantly glanced over my shoulder, but there was no one in sight. The next day at work, the feeling of being watched intensified. I noticed a coworker, Ethan, whom I'd barely spoken to before, now seemed to be wherever I was. He'd strike up awkward conversations and try to get closer, but something about his demeanor gave me chills. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was the source of my unease. As the days passed, it became clear that my online purchase had something unusual about it. Whenever I wore those boots, it seemed to captivate Ethan's attention like a moth to a flame. His obsession with me grew, and he became increasingly aggressive in his pursuit. He left gifts on my desk, sent me flowers, and constantly sent me messages on social media, all professing his love for me. But I had never encouraged him, and his advances were making me increasingly uncomfortable. Desperate to figure out what was going on, I decided to confide in a trusted friend at work, Lisa. She listened carefully to my story, and her face grew pale as I recounted the details. "I've heard of something like this before," she said cautiously. "There's a rumor that there's a love potion hidden inside some handmade boots, but I thought it was just an urban legend." I stared at her in disbelief. Love potion? It seemed ridiculous, but the strange occurrences and Ethan's obsession couldn't be ignored any longer. I knew I had to get rid of those boots before things got even worse. That evening, I returned home, clutching the cursed boots in my trembling hands. The sun was setting, casting long, eerie shadows that seemed to dance around me, mirroring the unease I felt in my gut. With a sense of dread, I hesitated in my backyard, staring at the boots that had brought me both admiration and terror. The bonfire had been prepared earlier, the wood stacked neatly in a small pit, ready to devour whatever was thrown into it. It was my only hope to break the enchantment that seemed to have ensnared not just Ethan but my life as well. As I approached the pit, the boots felt strangely heavy, as if they were resisting their fiery fate. It was almost as if they had become a part of me, and the thought of losing them was disconcerting. But I knew I couldn't let their alluring facade deceive me any longer. With a deep breath, I mustered the courage to toss the boots into the fire. The moment they touched the flames, a surge of heat and crimson flames erupted, engulfing them. The intricate patterns on the boots began to writhe and contort as if the very essence of the enchantment was fighting to survive. The leather hissed and crackled, releasing an acrid, pungent smell into the air. I took a step back, watching the cursed footwear disintegrate before my eyes. The intense heat seemed to roar like a living entity, consuming the boots, and with each passing second, the enchantment began to weaken. As I stood there, mesmerized by the spectacle before me, a sudden, chilling wind swept through the backyard. It carried with it the whispered remnants of the love potion spell, a haunting reminder of the power that had nearly ensnared me. "No!" I screamed. The boots shriveled and blackened, their once vibrant colors now reduced to smoldering embers. I knew that the only way to ensure the spell's destruction was to allow the fire to reduce the boots to ashes, ensuring there would be no chance of their dark magic returning. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the flames subsided, leaving behind only a small pile of ash and charred remains. The boots were gone, their enchantment extinguished. But even with the ordeal seemingly over, I couldn't shake the lingering feeling of dread that still clung to me. "Please," I whispered, "I really want this nightmare to end." The following day, the atmosphere at work was noticeably different. Ethan was distant, and his fixation on me had disappeared. It seemed that destroying the boots had broken whatever spell they held over him. I couldn't help but feel relieved, but I also couldn't forget the eerie experience. Love potions and cursed objects were not just the stuff of legends. They were real, and I had learned that the hard way. Story 3. "Mom, I'm home!" I yelled as I entered the house. I left my backpack on the bed as I was exhausted from school. "Welcome home, honey. Come quick, I have to show you something," Mom yelled back. Extremely tired, I grunted as I walked towards the kitchen. Upon arrival, my mom looked excited to show me her new cooking pan. "I found this pan online, and it looks so beautiful. You see the marble design, right?" She started showing the interior and exterior of the pan, eager for my response. "It looks nice, Mom," I lied. "I'm sure the food would be a lot tastier now." Dinner rolled around, and my mom used the new pan to make linguine. This time I was excited, as linguine is my favorite dish in the whole world. You can never go wrong with linguine, right? That statement was later proven false. The moment I had a bite, I wanted to spit out the food right away. It had a strange, lemon yet metallic taste, a taste so sour and bitter that it would be hard to swallow. I looked up and realized everyone at the table had the same face, excluding Mom. "Is everything okay?" I asked, trying to hide the disgust in my voice. Mom, seemingly oblivious to our torment, continued to eat as if nothing was wrong. "Oh, it's just the new pan," she said with a bright smile. "I'm still getting used to it. Maybe I should have seasoned it differently." But it wasn't just the taste that disturbed me, there was something off about the pan itself. The marble pattern on the inside seemed to move, shifting and swirling like a living, breathing thing. It was as if the pan had a mind of its own, and it was malevolent. My little brother, Tommy, suddenly pushed his plate away, tears in his eyes. "I can't eat this, Mom. It's making me sick." I nodded in agreement, my appetite completely gone. The rest of the dinner was spent in silence, with Mom eating the tainted linguine as if nothing was wrong, her smile never fading. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong with that pan. I decided to investigate, sneaking into the kitchen after everyone had gone to bed. As I approached the pan, I could hear a faint, eerie whispering, like a chorus of distant, haunting voices. Terrified, I touched the surface of the pan, and the marble pattern rippled beneath my fingers. It was like sinking my hand into an otherworldly pond, as if the pan itself was a gateway to some dark and eerie dimension. The surface felt cold, sending shivers down my spine, and I could feel a malevolence radiating from it. Suddenly, the voices grew louder, filling the room with a cacophony of cries and whispers. It was as if a legion of tormented souls had been trapped within the pan, yearning for release. The voices were disjointed, their words incomprehensible, but their despair was palpable. I could sense their anger, their longing, and their pain, and it sent a chill down my spine. I recoiled in horror, stumbling backwards as the voices assaulted my senses. My heart pounded in my chest, and I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. It was as if the pan itself was trying to draw me in, to ensnare me with its dark and sinister power. The pan seemed to react to my fear as if it were feeding on it. The marble pattern on the inside twisted and contorted, taking on grotesque and nightmarish shapes. Faces appeared in the patterns, contorted in agony, their eyes filled with terror. It was as if the pan itself was a portal to a realm of suffering and despair. The whispers grew more sinister, more demanding, as if the tormented souls within were trying to communicate with me. I could feel their anger, their desperation, and their desire to be free. It was a tormenting chorus of voices, each one vying for my attention, and I knew I had to get rid of the pan before something even worse happened. The next morning, I confronted my mom about the pan, telling her about the strange taste and the disturbing whispers. She looked at me with a blank expression, as if she had no idea what I was talking about. But I couldn't wait for her to understand. I grabbed the pan and ran outside. In the backyard, I built a fire, and with a mix of fear and determination, I threw the cursed pan into the flames. As the fire consumed the pan, I could hear the same chorus of voices, now growing desperate and anguished. But slowly, as the pan melted and distorted in the heat, the voices faded away, and a sense of relief washed over me. From that day on, we never spoke of the haunted cooking pan again. Mom seemed to have no memory of it, and life returned to normal. But I couldn't forget the chilling experience, and always made a mental note to look carefully when Mom shopped online.